technically he gets to be opening kickoff from our friends at Black Bitch Coffee and blackbitchcoffee.com. We go to the Central Time Zone, or as the boss calls it, God's Time Zone. And it is Central Time, where our buddy Lucas Panzica from 104.5 The Zone drops by. How are you, my friend, as we get ready for a big rivalry weekend?
I'm good, man. Hope you're well. Central Time Zone, one of those things that you're especially thankful for when a 10:30 kickoff at least isn't an 11:30 kickoff.
Yes, I will grant you that. Yeah. And so we will get into said kickoff here in a sec. And you get a win like that at the Azteca.
If you don't mind a cameo appearance.
Oh, absolutely not. No. We are a Guardian friendly zone. The rowdy man is right here. He's making sure that no one comes into the set, and if the handyman does, then he'll hear about it. Yeah, pet friendly, pet free, absolutely. Cameos are always welcome. You go to the Azteca, you get a goal from Hani Mukhtar. Sam Surridge not in the lineup, and that'll be a subplot here in a second. Has it sunk in yet to Nashville that they did what they did earlier in the week?
Man, it's a good question. Going down, it didn't feel like this sort of insurmountable task, just given the form Club America had been in, how tight the first leg was at Geodis Park, and the fact that, obviously, without conceding an away goal in the first leg, there was the scenario of Nashville drawing 1-1, 2-2, or what have you, and advancing on away goals. So, going in, there's kind of just this perception that you're going to the Azteca. It's just not somewhere MLS teams win. It's just not. But on the other hand, when you ask yourself, is it feasible for this game to end 1-1? Oh, yes, absolutely it is. Club America, Jardine there is probably on the hot seat. They've been on a rough patch of form. Nashville controlled the game in the first leg. So you really only need 1 to 2 moments, and they got that from, fittingly, Hani Mukhtar in the 51st minute. The Surridge knock kind of popped up late, and that was certainly a concern. Didn't travel to Mexico City, but overall, a pretty controlling performance. Nashville did get away with some sloppy moments here and there, and Brian Schwacke stepped up in a major way in goal. But obviously, a historic moment for the club. And yeah, I'd be lying if I didn't say that Nashville fans were still kind of riding this high, this euphoria of making that sort of MLS history and taking another step closer to a continental crown.
Listen to you talking Triple C. You opened up another door with Schwacke, and I know that Joe Willis has been anchored there. Literally, you sign his book when you go into the goal mouth these days. But now Schwacke comes over from Sporting Kansas City, and you get the new guy between the sticks. What's it been like with him hitting all the right notes so far, coming over and getting the starts?
Well, it wasn't Sporting Kansas City. He actually came over from Europe. I mean, Schwacke played his college soccer at DePaul, and then kind of took the road less traveled for a young American player. COVID had hit. He had no options other than to go play in the lower level leagues in Scotland, and that's what he did, and he cut his teeth there. And then he did the same in Spain, third tier soccer in Spain, where he really learned how to play with the ball at his feet. And there was a mutual coaching connection there between somebody he played for in Spain that had known and worked with BJ Callahan in the past. And they brought him in kind of with this goal of phasing him in as the one if he'd be up to the task. And they did that last year with Schwacke as the 2 behind Willis. He got U.S. Open Cup. He obviously took that opportunity and ran with it. And then they were able to phase into Schwacke as the 1. Willis was not anticipated to be brought back after last year. The club elected not to bring him back, and then they end up bringing him back on a 1-year deal. He decides, why go to another city and try to scrap it out for a starting job when I'm here? My family's here. And he's essentially acted as a mentor to Brian Schwacke, who can do much more out of the back in terms of what BJ Callahan needs out of his keepers.
Now, you mentioned Sam Surridge, and obviously he was not available. He didn't show up. That was a bit of a surprise, as you mentioned, on all the news and notes as everybody was heading down. Do you have anything resembling a Sam Surridge update?
Day to day right now. It's
Aren't we all, sir?
I hear you. It's pretty touch and go at this point. Like I said, that kind of came out of the blue. Sam Surridge came off the bench last Saturday in the second half against Charlotte. Rotated squad, but he got a cameo there, as did Hani Mukhtar, Christian Espinoza, trying to keep legs fresh for the Tuesday fixture in Mexico. And then, I learned the day before that he probably wasn't going to make the trip. And at this point, it's still kind of touch and go. And look, with Nashville going down to Atlanta, obviously with the semifinal tie looming in CONCACAF Champions Cup. I don't know. I can't sit here and tell you for sure, but I will say I'd be surprised if Sam Surridge appears or starts on Saturday at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But it's touch and go at the moment, as tricky as hamstring injuries can be.
Then, as we project this further, the lineup in the midweek, Schwacke in net, Reed Baker-Whiting, Maxwell Edgy, Palacios, Nahar at the back, Muil, Eddie Tagset, Madrigal, Yazbek, Espinoza, Mukhtar. How much of that 11, considering they played in the midweek, considering what happened in the midweek and all the energy exerted, how rotated would you anticipate this side be for BJ coming down?
It's an interesting question because there's really only 2 occasions where Nashville has rotated heavily this season, and that has been with a Tuesday or Wednesday looming in CONCACAF Champions Cup. It was at Columbus and at Charlotte. BJ made 8 and 7 changes, respectively, in those 2 games, and Nashville came away with 6 points out of those games. But the only sample size right now that we have of Nashville coming off that midweek against an opponent like Inter Miami, which is kind of what's happening here, coming off the midweek against Club America, without a midweek on the other side. Nashville rolled out a pretty full-strength lineup the last time they were in this situation against Orlando before the international break, and they routed Orlando 5-0 on that day. John, I would not expect a lineup like you saw last Saturday in Charlotte with Rubens Pacius starting up top and just that sheer amount of rotation. I'm expecting Nashville to go pretty full strength here as they try to sustain, right, and do the thing that's been so difficult for so many MLS teams with CONCACAF Champions Cup congesting the schedule.
Yeah, and getting into that, then I would imagine once again, and we'll get into the bench in the midweek, Acosta Valdez, your Snidely Whiplash of a villain and Joe Willis, Lovitz, Mayer, Bauer, Williams, Muhammad, Pacius, Corcoran, and Kassem. There are some younger guys there that were on the bench to start that have proven that they're worthy of the minutes that BJ Callahan wants of them. And so if he trots out, all things being equal, the 11 of 11s, then I'm thinking probably 45 and 60, somewhere between 45 and 60, 65 is where you're going to be relying on that bench to bring this one home. True?
True to an extent. BJ Callahan, I have to say, last year, hardly rotated. I mean, midweek fixtures coming up, it wasn't really part of Nashville's mindset. It was, look, we're just going to roll out a full-strength lineup each and every match. Now, the depth is much improved here in 2026, so they can afford to rotate a lot more without that drop-off being as significant. But I don't believe Nashville has a plan. They kind of have it in blocks, right? Okay, here's this stretch of 32 days with 9 matches, and then this stretch of 35 days with 10 matches, where they kind of have a plan that they want to execute, a general plan. But I think once the whistle blows and the ball is rolling, it is about that 90 minutes. And there's not this preconceived, okay, in the best case scenario, X player is taken off. He's run his race after 60, 65 minutes. Nashville's going to go down to Mercedes-Benz Stadium to try to get 3 points. Honestly, it's the mentality they've carried in road games since BJ Callahan stepped in here. Now, with that said, if you see players like Hani Mukhtar kind of in that vein starting on the bench, then you can very well expect to see those players coming off the bench in the second half to close out games, where whenever there is rotation, there's kind of this switching of roles where bench players just become the starters, and then the starters become the bench players that come in for reinforcements in the second half.
Our buddy Lucas Panzica dropping by, Opposition Research, getting ready for Nashville and Atlanta. Stylistically, last year to this year, how different is Nashville? It seems, obviously, you look at the numbers and the standings, goals allowed, very, very small. How stylistically different are they, and how are things? I mean, when somebody walks in the door, what are they going to see different this year than they might have last year, formationally and stylistically?
Honestly, not terribly different in terms of what they want to accomplish. The biggest difference to me is honestly the personnel in some critical situations. Nashville is kind of an elevated version of what they were last year. I think they're more in the mold of what BJ Callahan envisioned when he stepped foot in Music City a couple of years ago. Whereas last year, they were starting to reach that sort of style of play, but doing it with parts and pieces that maybe weren't as good a fits. And, credit to Walker Zimmerman and Joe Willis, who had never once in his long career been asked to be a ball-playing goalkeeper and kind of grew into that role last year. But here in 2026, Walker Zimmerman's out. and Maxwell Waledji is in. And this is a line-breaking center back. He can carry the ball forward. He can, a lot of times, build out, dictate the beginning of an attack from the back line. Brian Schwacke, who, can be an extension of Nashville's buildup. You'll often find him flanked by two center backs with fullbacks pushing wide as Nashville essentially builds in threes, right, in every phase of the field. So it's just kind of a more advanced version of what they were doing last year, John, with a player like Christian Espinoza now in the building to be able to draw attention away from the likes of Hani Mukhtar and Sam Surridge, and that's obviously opened a lot of things up.
Yeah, that is definitely the move of the offseason. It's like, yeah, we forgot to submit the paperwork on a renewal. Oh, he's available? Okay, great. I looked at that and I was like, damn, son, that's a good pull. I mean,
it's sometimes better to be lucky than good, right?
Take it. All right. So then if, you and I are doing the open, since we've done opens together, we know how to do the open. Music hits, title card over wide. We welcome everybody in. Then we do our quick little hits on the overarching match itself. Then we do players to watch. We do the Atlanta players to watch. Then we do the Nashville players to watch. Give me someone who is not in that player to watch category. Give me somebody who flies below the radar that would contribute to the success of Nashville on Saturday. So if so-and-so is doing what they're supposed to do within the framework of the starting 11, then Nashville SC is succeeding. Who would that below the radar person be? Is it Max Waledji?
Max Waledji is a great shout. Absolutely. I would go, since you mentioned Maxwell, Patrick Yazbek. Patrick Yazbek has had the season of his life to this point in 2026. Did play 70 minutes on Tuesday. We'll see how much of a factor that is going into the starting lineup on Saturday. But look, he is a man on a mission trying to make the Australian national team for the World Cup. He has been he's been much more involved in the attack. I mean, he's a box-to-box midfielder, right? He kind of falls under that category. John, this year he's been end line to end line. I mean, the guy has been everywhere. He's surging forward with these long, rangy dribbles. He and Eddie Tagseth have complemented one another very well. But there's been a couple of occasions this year where Patrick Yazbek has just been everywhere. When you follow Patrick Yazbek, you're following the game really in all three phases of the field. So that's the one I would submit for those that look at Nashville and they know Hani and they know about Sam and they obviously know about Christian. But Yazbek has really unlocked a lot of things because Nashville was thought to have needed in the offseason a ball progressing, more creative midfielder. That felt like a big box to check. They didn't necessarily address that in the offseason. They kind of addressed it by making it a point of emphasis for Patrick Yazbek to turn into more of that type of player. And that's exactly what he's done. I don't think they could have asked for a much better first few months from their number 8.
Best offense in the East, best defense in the East, coming off the biggest, safe to say the biggest win in club history, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Look, you won a trophy last year, but what are we talking about here, right? We're talking about going to Mexico City in CONCACAF Champions Cup as opposed to going to Austin on a Wednesday in October, which no disrespect to the U.S. Open Cup, but by degree of difficulty, John, yeah, I think we'll all agree that, yeah, this one tops the list.
So are you going to submit for the field trip for the Tigres matchup coming up in the semifinals?
I mean, you bet. That's another bucket list stadium for sure. And I'm fascinated to see what that matchup looks like. I really am. I'd be lying if there wasn't part of me hoping Seattle Sounders would prevent that away goal and pull that thing out earlier this week. Limit those trips to Mexico as much as possible, right? But at the end of the day, I think it's cool that there's this opportunity to challenge yourself going back to Mexico and facing a team that, unlike Club America, is hot right now in the Clausura and Liga MX.
Last meal that you cooked at home was what?
Oh, last night I made like a little lamb hummus sort of,
You had me at lamb, but then you lost me at hummus.
Oh, you're not a hummus guy. Okay.
No.
Kind of some Mediterranean vibes last night, just riffing around a little bit.
Okay, just checking because we know how you like to get lost in the kitchen sometimes. Are you having said lamb and hummus for breakfast?
No, not quite. Just a regular old American breakfast for me this morning. But yeah, well, I'm looking forward to this on Saturday, man. I know the vibes haven't been fantastic in Atlanta this year, but I promise you the way that it's being talked about up here is, look, a team with the sort of quality on Atlanta's roster that's had those sort of struggles oftentimes can turn into one of the more dangerous teams you can face in any given weekend on the road.
hit the promo for me and let me know how folks can listen not only this weekend but 24/7.
Sure. 104.5 The Zone is where we are for every Nashville SC radio broadcast. Obviously, and the home matches watching on Apple TV, you can toggle that on. At Lucas Panzica is where you can find me for all sorts of Nashville SC coverage.
Where it says right there.
That's
See?
it.
Right there, at Lucas Panzica. Glad you were able to introduce us to your furry guardian this morning. We always approve those kinds of things. And don't be a stranger. Crash anytime. It's always great to see you, my friend. And we're going to have fun on Saturday night.
Thanks, brother.